Hi, so next we'll have Nicole talking to Brett Gaylor. Brett Gaylor is the project lead for Mozilla's Web-Made Movies project, an open video laboratory researching the intersection of video and the World Wide Web. Before working with Mozilla, Brett directed the award-winning documentary RIP, A Remix Manifesto, created open-source-cinema.org, helped found homelessnation.org, and was a key creative at the Montreal-based production house I Steal Film. Brett lives on an island with his family. We're not going to tell you which one, though. So, Nicole, over to Brett.
Hi, Brett.
Hello.
It's awesome to see you. So the island that you're currently living on is Vancouver Island, right?
That is the island I'm currently living on, yes, as of 2 months ago.
So we're very excited to have Brett in our community here in Victoria. At least I know I am. Brett's worked on some pretty incredible projects. And before we jump into learning a little bit more about what he's doing at the Mozilla Foundation, can you tell us a little bit about RIP, a Remix Manifesto, and give us your sort of one-line pitch on that? And
I was never good at one-line pitches. I will try and keep it short, though. But it was a documentary that I made over about 6 years about the sort of conflict between copyright holders and remixers. And it was this, we followed a character named Girl Talk as he was kind of started as a really small remix artist and got quite famous over the course of making the film. And it was really exploring this, like, how do we make sense of copyright law in the age of the internet?
And tell us a little bit about the website for that project and how people got involved with it.
Yeah, so a big part of the message of the film was that the internet sort of returns us to a folk culture, where everybody can create. And so we wanted to try and walk that talk in making the film. So we allowed people to upload footage as we were making the film, but also to sort of remix the film as we were creating it. And then they would send us back their short remixes, and we found ways to include those in the final film.
So there was a lot of sort of different media taken all over the place, from Disney to, I guess Disney was a big one.
Disney was a big one.
Michael Jackson and sort of whatnot. Did you actually run into any legal implications after the film was released?
Yes, we did, but we were really lucky in that the film was made with the National Film Board of Canada, and they were really supportive of us. And they basically said, we had an advantage that unfortunately most remix artists don't have, is that we have kind of another big gorilla in the room with us, right, where a lot of remix artists who are trying to make work that's really public, they'll have to face that big gorilla. So you oftentimes see artists who are sort of bullied and sued. And there was just a case a couple of weeks ago where somebody who wanted to sort of pay homage to Miles Davis did in the, what was it called? In the tune of Bloop, I think. And it was like it's an homage to Miles Davis, and they were sued for doing that. And so we wanted to really sort of rally behind musicians that were like that, but we wanted it to get on television. We wanted it to play in film festivals. We wanted to get into theaters, and so we had to, go through some legal mechanisms that would allow us to do that. And the film board sort of said, the long story short is that they stood behind us and said, if you ever go to court, we'll have your back. And so nobody took us up on that, luckily.
Crazy. So you said that Remix also inspired you into this new Mozilla project that you're working on. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration and tell us a little about the project?
Yeah, so it was just, when we put RIP on TV, it played in like many, many countries. It played in I think like 17 countries. We had a theatrical run here and DVDs, and we were really happy about that. It was great. And then obviously we wanted to put it on the web, right? That was the real audience for the film. And I was just sort of disappointed that when we put it on the web, it was like you basically taking TV and putting it into a web page. And that is so much of what video on the web is like. If you think about YouTube, it's just this one box surrounded by all these other boxes, But there's no way to have those boxes talk to each other, so to speak. And that's in sort of stark contrast, cut me off here, by the way, whenever, sort of contrast to the rest of the web, where elements of the web can play with each other. You can have a piece of text influence an image, and that's what you see with things like Google Maps or Twitter, right? It's like everything is interconnected, and you don't have that with video. So we wanted to create something where if you were watching the film, what if, at a certain point in the film you could have a link to that article that's referenced or the person that's talking or see what they're doing now via Twitter. And so we came up with this thing called Popcorn, which is basically, you know how they talk about hypertext when you can like see a link on a web page and you can click on it? And this is to do that with video, and we call it hypervideo. So like maybe between 30 seconds and 32 seconds, if I talk about Nicole, I'd be able to see your Twitter feed. Or if you're doing a really interesting activist campaign, I'd be able to point right to that. And so it was this whole movement to try and make video work more like the web. And the reason it hasn't until now is because a lot of the control over video on the web has been proprietary interests like Flash. And so I was asked by Mozilla, who make the Firefox browser, to try and innovate in that area and play around and muckrake a little bit.
So how did you end up getting in front of Mozilla? Did you actually pitch to them, or?
At a bar, I think. It's a place like the Sunset Room. It was at the Open Video Conference in New York that they had been put on, and Mozilla was interested in technically innovating in the browser, but I actually talked to them and said, these aren't really benefiting filmmakers and people who are trying to create stories with this. And then they sort of said, well, I dare you to try. So.
Well, I think one of the great things that you're doing is you're really bringing context and relevance into film, which I think it's pretty groundbreaking to be able to talk about something and have a link or whatnot that would then link into something that would give you a greater context, as opposed to having to sort of discuss something that maybe shouldn't be in the film. It's just kind of another piece of trivia.
Right, and I think it works both ways too, because what filmmakers and artists are really good at is sort of providing a lens at something that's really complex. So, the web sometimes feels like just really sprawling, and how do I make sense of all this information? Well, one really great way that writers do or painters do or any artist does is provide a lens and just say, let me take you on a journey through this. And so the web needs some of that storytelling, I think.
So as a filmmaker, it sounds like you're pretty big into technology as well. How important would you say technology is right now for filmmakers, given the new changing media landscape?
I think it depends. Some filmmakers will always want to just use celluloid and maybe they love the tactile, but for me, it's always been really exciting because the web is just always sort of innovating so quickly that, it's sometimes we forget that it's only sort of like 15 years old in terms of popular consciousness. And so for me, what it's great about it is, it's something that you are meant to influence. The web, we forget that the web is not passive and it's not a medium of consumption. It's something that you are meant to actively have agency in. And so the web's exciting for me and for other filmmakers, I think, because if you really try and you really push at it, you can not only carve out an audience and a niche, but you can influence the entire direction of the technology. And that's something that's not true of television,
Definitely, and you have a lot wider audience to work and play with.
Yeah, and the industry is changing so much that I really think, and especially for doc, I think, there's just a really neat opportunity here to, it's like we're the underdogs. Like, yeah, we're the underdogs. Let's find different ways of distribution and production.
So if you close your eyes and kind of just think of, an ideal scenario of a project that you could work on to kind of show this to light, what would the project look like? And how would you sort of use the technology?
Yeah, that's always like the blank canvas that's in front of me in the morning. But right now, I'm really interested in actually things that almost feel like games. So it's like, in a game, you make choices, but you're not in control, right? So video games where there's a clear authorship, but you're meant to actually change some of the world. So for instance, we're
like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, I know, and that's always the thing that I think about, but it needs to feel more natural than that. But one of the properties that we're interested in working on is a book by Cory Doctorow, who's a science fiction author, and he runs this site called Boing Boing, and it's called Little Brother, and it's set after a terrorist attack in San Francisco, and the Department of Homeland Security creates this police state. And the kids, the teenagers in it, sort of overturn that police state by hacking, by being curious teens. And so I want to adapt that in a way that there's a story element that perhaps is an animation or a comic book, but then the real world elements are brought in using some of those hyper video techniques. So if they show you how to, take apart the security camera, you'd actually get another mini documentary that really explains how to do that. And so there's several dimensions to the story, like
Awesome.
3D, not in the sort of James Cameron sense, but in a layer of reference.
Very cool. So where can we learn more about Popcorn?
Popcornjs.org is JS for JavaScript, so popcornjs.org. You can see the technology and download it and see other productions that are using it.
Thanks for joining us, Brett. We're
it was really
all
fun.
excited, and I know that I would love to play with Popcorn, and I'm thinking for a project that I think MediaNet's actually helping with Get on the Dock Bus. I'm already thinking of cool
it's
ways
perfect.
to get
Maybe we
involved.
can do something at MediaNet.
Sounds good. Awesome.